Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I used to think New York chews people up and spits them out. Turns out sometimes it digs up your past and drops it right on your doorstep. I moved to Hollis Hills, Queens in late October, right when the city starts smelling like wet leaves, exhaust fumes, and burnt coffee. It wasn't Manhattan glam or Brooklyn trendy. It was quiet, suburban by New York standards, tree-lined blocks, driveways instead of fire escapes, and neighbors who nodded but didn't ask questions. That's exactly why I chose it. After years of cramped apartments, upstairs neighbors blasting music at 3 a.m., and landlords who treated maintenance requests like personal insults, I wanted silence, space, somewhere I could work without hearing someone argue through the walls. I was 34, single, and tired in a way sleep didn't fix. My new house wasn't huge, but it felt like a win. 2 stories, a small porch, a fenced backyard, the kind of place where Amazon packages didn't vanish in 5 minutes. I still remember standing in the empty living room on move-in day, keys in my hand, thinking, yeah, I could breathe here. That illusion lasted about 20 minutes. I was unloading boxes from my car when I heard someone say my name, not the full version, the old one. Joey. I froze. Nobody in my adult life called me that. I turned slowly, half expecting some random neighbor who got the wrong idea. Instead, I saw a face I hadn't seen in over 2 decades. Same crooked grin, same uneven eyebrows, same posture like his shoulders were always bracing for something. My stomach dropped. "No way," I said. "Cal?" He laughed, a sharp bark that pulled a memory straight out of my chest. "Holy hell, Joey Morales. I thought that was you." Calvin Reese, my childhood best friend. Out of every person I never expected to see again, he was at the top of the list. We grew up on the same block in South Bronx back when the buildings were uglier and the streets were louder. When kids still played outside until streetlights came on, not because parents trusted the neighborhood, but because they were too tired to care. Cal and I were inseparable. While other kids played stickball and got into dumb fights, we stayed inside. Video games were our thing before they were cool. We'd sit cross-legged on the floor, controllers warm in our hands, arguing over whose turn it was like it was life or death. "Bro, you died. Pass it," I'd say. "No, that was lag," Cal would argue. "You saw that. That wasn't me." Sleepovers meant soda cans under the bed and whispering at 2 a.m., so his mom wouldn't yell from the hallway. We talked about everything back then. Games we'd make one day, places we'd live, how we'd never turn into boring adults. Then one summer, his family moved. Just like that. No goodbye party. No warning. His house emptied, and that was it. We talked a few times after. Then less. Then not at all. Life happened. And now here he was, standing in front of my new house like a glitch in reality. "You live here?" I asked. He pointed next door. "Been here about 6 months." I laughed, still trying to process it. "You gotta be kidding me." "Small world, huh?" he said. Something about his smile felt off, but I ignored it. Nostalgia is a powerful drug. The first week felt almost nice. We talked over fences, caught up in fragments. He told me he'd bounced around, New Jersey, Philly, back to New York. I told him about my work. "I design games," I said one evening. "For real?" he asked. "Yeah, mostly indie stuff, freelance contracts." "Damn," he said. "Didn't see that coming." That should have been my first warning. A few days later, he knocked on my door. "Figured we should hang out properly," he said. "Old times." I hesitated, then shrugged. "Sure." He stepped inside and stepped aside. 2 people followed him in. "This is Rico," he said, nodding to a tall guy with dead eyes. "And that's Nessa." Nessa didn't smile. She scanned my living room like she was counting exits. Rico's eyes lingered on my TV, my speakers, my desk. I felt it then, that slow, crawling unease. But I ignored it. We sat, talked, or tried to. Every question felt pointed. "So that computer," Rico said casually, "that's for work?" "Yeah. Must be expensive." "Not cheap." Nessa whispered something to Cal. He nodded. Then Cal laughed and said, "Man, remember how obsessed we were with games? I ditched that kid stuff years ago." I smiled automatically. Guess I didn't. The room shifted. Their interest sharpened. When they finally left, I locked the door behind them and stood there longer than necessary, staring at my reflection in the glass. Something wasn't right. And deep down, I think I already knew. The night everything came apart started like any other New York night. Cold wind rattling dead leaves down the block. A distant siren cutting through the quiet. Somewhere nearby, a dog barking like it had a personal grudge against the universe. I was in my home office, hoodie on, headphones half off, staring at lines of code that refused to cooperate. That kind of tired where your eyes burn but your brain won't shut down. It was a little after 2 a.m. That's when my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Front door. I frowned. Nobody comes by at 2 in the morning in Hollis Hills. Not unless something's wrong. I pulled up the camera feed. 3 figures stood on my porch, all wearing hoodies, all wearing those cheap blue medical masks you could buy anywhere. Not Halloween masks. Not trying to look scary. Trying not to be recognized. My chest tightened. One of them stood closest to the door. He shifted his weight, turned slightly sideways, and reached behind his lower back. For half a second, the porch light caught metal. A handgun. My mouth went dry. He tested the doorknob once, twice. Locked. Thank God. He stepped back like he was thinking, like he was weighing options. Then I heard a voice through the feed, low, sharp. "Yo, camera." A woman's voice. "Nessa." She pointed up at the Ring doorbell. The guy at the door leaned forward. Even with the mask on, even with the hood pulled low, I knew those eyes. Cal. The realization hit both of us at the same time. His eyes widened. "Shit," he muttered. Rico froze. Nessa swore under her breath. "Go, go, go," she hissed. She ran first. Rico followed. Cal yanked the doorknob one last time, hard, like anger had replaced caution. "Open the door," he whispered. Like I would. Then he bolted. I stood there shaking, heart trying to punch its way out of my chest. Then I did the only thing that made sense. I called 911. The cops arrived fast. Queens doesn't mess around when guns are involved. I showed them the footage, every angle, every second. The officer watching it paused when Cal's face filled the screen. "You know him?" he asked. I swallowed. "Yeah, he's my neighbor." That changed everything. Turns out, I wasn't the first house. Over the next 2 days, detectives came back, asked questions, took statements, played footage I'd never seen. Another house, same trio, same pattern. The difference? No masks. Cal had gotten sloppy. They picked him up 3 days later. I saw it happen from my window. Unmarked cars, flashing lights, Cal being pulled out of his house in cuffs. He didn't fight, didn't yell. He didn't look at me either. I don't know which hurt more, that he tried to rob me, or that he knew exactly what he was doing. Later, a detective told me everything. Cal wasn't just drifting, he was desperate. Gambling debts, bad connections, Rico was muscle. Nessa planned jobs. They targeted quiet neighborhoods, familiar faces, fake friends, people who knew just enough to hurt you. I kept thinking about our childhood, the sleepovers, the promises we made, how somewhere along the way, he chose a darker path, and how close I came to paying for it. I still live in that house. The cameras stay on. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself staring at the empty driveway next door, remembering a kid with a controller in his hands, laughing like the world couldn't touch him. New York doesn't always change people. Sometimes it just reveals who they already were. Never assume you're safe because of where you live. Never assume the past can't hurt you. And never trust someone just because they used to be your friend. I never thought moving to a different country would make me feel smaller than I already was. Mexico looked beautiful in pictures. Bright colors, warm people, noise everywhere, life spilling out onto the streets. But when you're alone, none of that matters. Loneliness doesn't care how sunny the sky is. I moved to San Jacinto, a mid-sized industrial city in northern Mexico, because my job demanded it. The company I worked for specialized in logistics security, boring to explain, good money to earn. It was a 2-year contract. That was my mental anchor. 2 years, save hard, go back home. That's what I kept telling myself while I unpacked boxes in a rented concrete house that smelled faintly of dust and bleach. No family photos on the walls yet. No memories either. Back home, I wasn't popular. Never had been. I wasn't the loud guy. I wasn't the funny one. I was the guy people described as nice when they couldn't think of anything else. Making friends always felt like trying to read a script everyone else had memorized. After work, my routine was painfully predictable. I'd unlock the door, toss my keys in the same ceramic bowl, microwave leftovers, boot up my console, let YouTube autoplay until I fell asleep on the couch. It worked, for a while. But loneliness is patient. It waits. About 6 weeks in, on a Sunday afternoon, I found myself driving aimlessly just to kill time. That's when I noticed a small storefront wedged between a phone repair shop and a bakery. La Novena Viñeta, comics y coleccionables. I laughed out loud. Of course, I muttered. Of course there's a comic shop. Comics had always been my safe place. Before I could even read, I'd flip through my older cousin's books, tracing the lines with my finger, making up stories in my head. Marvel, DC, indie stuff, it didn't matter. The art mattered, the worlds mattered. I parked without thinking. Inside, the air smelled like old paper and plastic sleeves. A box fan hummed in the corner. Spanish rock played softly from a dusty speaker. Behind the counter sat a heavy-set guy with a shaved head, chewing gum and scrolling his phone. "Buenas," he said without looking up. I nodded, suddenly self-conscious. "Hey." I drifted toward the wall of new releases. My fingers brushed spines like I was greeting old friends. That's when a voice spoke right next to me. "Man, you got good taste." I flinched slightly and turned. He was tall, too thin. The kind of thin that looks fragile but isn't. His skin was pale compared to everyone else in the shop. Thick black-framed glasses sat crooked on his face. His hair was long and blonde, pulled back loosely, and his beard looked like it couldn't decide where it wanted to grow. He held the same comic I did, Fantastic Four. Yeah," I said, smiling awkwardly. "Been reading it forever." "No kidding?" he said, eyes lighting up. "This run? It actually respects the legacy. None of that lazy multiverse garbage." I blinked. "Yeah, exactly." He grinned. "Name's Riven." Not his real name. I didn't know that yet. I hesitated, then said my name. He shook my hand firmly. "Crazy coincidence, huh? 2 dudes from nowhere grabbing the same issue at the same time." "Yeah," I laughed. "Guess so." We talked. Not forced, not awkward. It just flowed. Comics, old Marvel arcs, why the MCU had lost its soul, Star Wars, games, even stupid inside jokes about collectors hoarding mint copies and never reading them. It felt easy. Before I left, he said, "You come here often?" "Just moved here," I admitted. "Didn't know this place existed." "Well," he shrugged, "guess that means I'll see you around." And I did. Twice a week turned into 3 times, sometimes more. We'd grab tacos from a stand down the block, sit on the curb, wrappers piling up, grease soaking through paper. "Dude," Riven said once, wiping his hands on his jeans, "you ever notice how lonely this city feels if you don't know people?" I nodded. Every damn day. He laughed softly. Same. That should have been my first warning. Over the next couple of months, Riven started syncing with me. At first, it was nothing. Same comic interests, same games, normal stuff. Then it got specific. I wore a faded Doom Patrol shirt one day. 2 days later, Riven showed up wearing the same one. Nice shirt, I said, forcing a chuckle. Right? He said. Found it online. Couldn't pass it up. Okay. Fine. Then it happened again. Same jacket, same sneakers, same backpack style. Man, I joked one afternoon, you stealing my wardrobe now? He laughed a little too hard. Guess we just got similar taste. Then came the haircut. I'd gone short on the sides, clean up top. Simple. Next time I saw him, his hair was gone, beard shaved, glasses changed to thinner frames. He stood in front of me, arms out. Well, he said, what do you think? I stared. We could have been brothers. No way, I said quietly. That's weird. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. Kinda cool though, right? Like variants. Same build. Different timeline. I forced a laugh. Yeah, sure. But my stomach tightened. A week later, as we were locking up the comic shop behind us, he said something that stuck. You ever think, he said casually, that some people are meant to replace others? I stopped walking. What? He shrugged. Like, same life, same interests, same path. One just slides into the other. That's dark, I said. He smiled again. Just a thought. That night I barely slept. The next morning I opened my door and froze. A familiar car idled across the street. Same model, same color, same dented bumper. Riven's. The engine revved. Then it drove off. I stood there longer than I should have. Heart pounding, telling myself I was being paranoid. At work, I couldn't focus. By noon, my chest felt tight. I told my supervisor, Lucia, "Hey, I'm not feeling great. Mind if I head out early?" She studied me. "You look pale. Go." When I got home, the screen door was open. I never left it open. Inside, the house was silent. Too silent. Then I heard movement. From my office. I moved slowly, heart in my throat, and peeked inside. Riven was kneeling by my closet, going through boxes. "Riven?" I said, voice shaking. "What the hell are you doing?" He jumped, knocking over a stack of comics. I was gonna surprise you, man," he stammered. "Thought you had a copy I was missing." My desk drawers were open. My laptop was unlocked. A box sat near his feet. My rarest comics. Financial documents. I noticed something else. His accent was gone. Before I could speak, he grabbed the desk lamp and threw it at my head. Everything went white. I hit the floor hard. A punch connected with my face, then another. I heard him run. A car door slam, tires squealing. When I came to, the box was gone. So was Riven. The police came, asked questions I couldn't answer. No last name, no socials, burner phone. One officer sighed. "He wasn't your friend." A week later, I found one comic at a pawn shop. The owner frowned. "Guy said his name was yours." He looked at me again. "Honestly," he muttered, "thought you were the same dude." I walked out shaking, because that meant he wasn't just stealing from me. He was trying to be me. I didn't sleep for 3 nights after the attack. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The creak of the ceiling fan, a dog barking 2 streets over, a car slowing down outside my gate. Each time, my body tensed like it was bracing for impact. The police said they'd keep an eye out, which I already knew meant nothing. In a city like San Jacinto, people disappeared all the time. One more weird guy with a fake name wasn't exactly top priority. I sat on my couch, ice pack pressed to my jaw, staring at the blank TV screen. "What the hell did you want from me?" I whispered to an empty room. The worst part wasn't the stolen comics. Not really. It was the violation. Someone had been in my house, in my life, watching me, studying me. I replayed everything, every conversation, every laugh, every shared joke. All of it felt contaminated now. I took the next week off work, told Lucia the truth this time. She shook her head slowly. You trusted the wrong person. I didn't even see it coming, I said. That's how it always works, she replied quietly. On the 8th day, I got a text. Unknown number. You okay, man? You went quiet. My blood ran cold. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Me. Who is this? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Unknown number. Don't act like that. It's me. I felt sick. Me. You broke into my house. A pause. Then, unknown number. You weren't supposed to come home early. That line hit harder than the punch ever did. Me. Why me? Minutes passed. I almost thought he wouldn't answer. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Because you had a life worth taking. I dropped the phone. Later that night, I noticed something else missing. My work badge. The realization made my chest tighten. My job involved secure facilities, restricted areas. If he tried to use my identity, I called my company immediately, locked everything down. The next day, a detective named Alvarez asked me to come in. We found something, he said. Security footage. A pawn shop camera caught Riven selling more than comics. Electronics. Personal items. He gave my name, used my signature, wore my clothes. Alvarez leaned back. This man didn't want to rob you. He wanted to replace you. They found him 2 days later. He'd tried to access a warehouse using my credentials. When I saw him in the interrogation room, my stomach twisted. He looked calm. Different haircut again, different jacket. But when he saw me, he smiled. Hey, he said softly. You look better. I didn't answer. He leaned forward. You had everything lined up. Job, money, stability. You didn't even appreciate it. That doesn't make it yours, I said. He tilted his head. I could have done it better. The judge didn't agree. Fraud, assault, identity theft. He went away for a long time. I moved out of that house a month later. Different neighborhood, different routine. I still go to comic shops, but I don't linger. I don't talk much. I keep my guard up. Sometimes I catch my reflection in a window and wonder how close I came to disappearing completely. People talk about fake friends like they're harmless. They're not. Some don't want your money. Some don't want your stuff. Some want your life. And if you're not careful, they'll wear it better than you ever did. I used to believe that knowing someone for most of your life meant you were safe with them. That belief died quietly, the same way everything else did, without warning, without closure, and without anyone noticing until it was already too late. I'm writing this because I don't know where else to put it. The police asked me to give a statement, but there are things you can't explain to people who only deal in facts and timelines. Some things live in the cracks between moments. Some things hide behind smiles and casual friendships. And some things sit across from you on the couch, wearing the face of the person you love. I'm Caleb Rourke. I'm 31 years old, and until a few months ago, I thought my life was boring in the best possible way. I'd been with my girlfriend Lillian since we were 17. High school sweethearts, the kind people roll their eyes at because they assume it won't last. We did long distance through college. Me in a state school up north, her 2 states over studying hospitality management. We survived bad Wi-Fi calls, missed holidays, and that quiet jealousy that creeps in when your lives are temporarily separate. When we finally moved in together, it felt earned. We rented a small house outside of Ridgeway, a quiet town with more pickup trucks than people, and the kind of diners where the coffee tastes burnt no matter how many times they refill it. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours, and Lillian was the center of it. She laughed loud. She cursed creatively. She danced in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching. She hated guns, hated knives, hated anything that could hurt someone if you weren't careful. She believed people were mostly good, even when I didn't. That's important to remember, because the woman she became would have scared the hell out of the woman I loved. The first moment I noticed something was wrong didn't feel dramatic, it was just off. I came home early one Tuesday. My work hours bounce around and she knew that, so it wasn't unusual. When I walked in, the house smelled like steam and eucalyptus. The shower was running. As I passed the bathroom, I heard her, not crying, not singing. She was grunting, sharp, frustrated sounds, followed by angry muttering. God damn it, shit, no, no, no. It stopped the second I knocked. Lil? I asked. You okay? Silence. Then carefully controlled. Yeah, I'm fine. Her voice was tight, like she was holding something back. You sure? I said I'm fine, she snapped. Please don't start. That alone made my stomach sink. Lillian never snapped, not at me. When she finally came out, her skin was flushed, her hands shaking slightly. She wouldn't look me in the eye. I asked again if something was wrong. She sighed, annoyed. Can you just not interrogate me? I had a rough day. So I backed off. That night, she barely slept. The next morning, I showered before work. That's when I saw the stain. On the ledge where we kept the shampoo bottle, there was a dark red ring, dried, crusty. Under the bottle, more residue clung to the grout like it had been scrubbed too late. It looked like blood. I told myself it was hair dye, or rust, or anything else that didn't make my chest tighten. I didn't say anything. That was my first mistake. A few days later, I came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table with a woman I'd never met. This is Jessa, Lillian said quickly. She's a friend from work. Jessa didn't smile. She sized me up like I was something inconvenient. Mid-30s, sharp cheekbones, restless energy. Her eyes didn't stop moving. Hey, I said. Hey, she replied flatly. They had a laptop open. The second I stepped closer, Lillian snapped it shut. We were just about to head out, she said too fast. Jessa stood, grabbed her jacket. As she passed me, she leaned in slightly and muttered, You don't know her like you think you do. Then she left. I stood there, stunned. What the hell was that? I asked. Lillian's face went pale. She's just intense. Don't read into it. But I already was. That night after she fell asleep, I opened the laptop. I wasn't proud of it, but something felt wrong in a way I couldn't ignore. Her browser was still open. The last page was a weapons marketplace. Not mainstream, not regulated. The kind of site you don't stumble onto by accident. I scrolled. Search history showed missing persons articles, forums, maps leading to remote wooded areas outside town. Places locals called dead zones because cell service vanished there. My hand started shaking. This was the woman who once cried because she accidentally stepped on a frog. Over the next week, Lillian disappeared emotionally. No laughter, no affection, no warmth. Her shoes were always muddy. Her phone stayed off. Her computer broke. And Jessa kept showing up, always when I wasn't supposed to be home. The last time I saw her, her car was packed with bags. She stormed out after a hushed argument. As she passed me, she said, You should have stopped her. Lillian collapsed on the couch, ghost white. I asked her one last time, What's happening to you? She whispered, I'll be okay soon, I promise. That was the moment I knew. I didn't recognize her eyes anymore. The truth came out 3 nights later. I followed her. She drove out past Ridgeway, past the highway, into the woods. I stayed far back, heart pounding, headlights off. She stopped near an old quarry. Jessa was already there. So was someone else. A man, bound, alive. I stumbled backward, snapped a twig. Lillian turned. She saw me, and she smiled. Not lovingly, relieved. I was wondering when you'd stop pretending, she said. Jessa laughed. Told you he wasn't blind. They explained everything calmly, like it was normal. They weren't cheating, they weren't on drugs. They were hunters. They targeted people no one would miss. Drifters, abusers, men with long records and no attachments, fake friends, fake names, fake lives. They justified it. They deserve it, Lillian said. We make the world safer. I begged her to come home. She tilted her head. You could help us. When I refused, her face hardened. Then you're a liability. That man never left the quarry, and neither did Jessa. Lillian framed her. She framed me too, almost. But she made one mistake. She trusted me. The police found the site weeks later. Too much evidence. Too many patterns. Lillian vanished. Sometimes I swear I see her in grocery stores, gas stations, watching, still hunting, still smiling. And now you know why fake friends are the most dangerous kind. They don't stab you in the back. They ask you to help hold the knife. I was 30 years old when I realized I didn't have a single real friend left. That thought hit me one morning while I was sitting on the edge of a borrowed mattress, lacing up boots that weren't even mine, in a room that smelled like mildew and old takeout. Sunlight pushed through a cracked window, cutting across the floor like a prison bar. Somewhere outside, a garbage truck rattled down the street, and for a second I thought I was back in county again. Same noise, same hollow feeling in my chest. I'd spent most of my life on the wrong side of things. Not evil, not heartless, just stupid, angry, and convinced the world owed me something it was never going to hand over. I dropped out of high school halfway through 11th grade, told everyone it was because I didn't need school. Truth was, I couldn't sit still, couldn't keep my mouth shut, and couldn't stand being told what to do by people I didn't respect. I thought I'd figure it out on my own. At 20, I caught my first charge. Nothing glamorous, just dumb street-level stuff. By 25, jail felt familiar. By 29, it felt inevitable. On my 30th birthday, I woke up with a split lip, a pounding headache, and a calendar reminder I didn't remember setting. 30 today, don't waste what's left. I stared at that notification for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't pray. I just felt tired, deep tired, the kind that settles into your bones and doesn't leave. So I tried to change. Not overnight. Not clean-cut redemption. Just small steps. I stopped hanging around the guys who only called when they needed something. I avoided bars. I started walking into places I never would have before. Community centers, volunteer kitchens, churches. Most of it felt fake. Smiles that disappeared the moment you turned your back. People more interested in being seen helping than actually helping. Then one Saturday afternoon I met Elliot Crane. It was at a rundown brick building tucked between a closed laundromat and a pawn shop in a neighborhood most people avoided after dark. I didn't even know what kind of church it was. There were no crosses on the walls, no sermons that day. Just folding tables, aluminum trays of food, and people who didn't ask questions. Elliot stood out immediately. Late 40s, maybe early 50s. Broad shoulders, thick forearms, beard streaked with gray. He wore work boots and a plain flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up like he wasn't afraid to get dirty. He laughed easily, real laughter, not polite noise. "Grab a bowl," he said when he saw me hovering. "Chili's still hot." I nodded. "Appreciate it." We sat at the same table. He didn't interrogate me, didn't try to sell me faith or forgiveness. "Name's Elliot," he said. "You from around here?" "Sort of," I said. "Depends how you define from." He smiled. "Fair enough." Later I learned Elliot wasn't even religious. He called himself agnostic, said belief was complicated. What wasn't complicated, in his words, was people needing people. Everyone there loved him, the volunteers, the staff, even the church officials. He donated food, clothes, money, sometimes entire truckloads of it. He showed up early and left last, drove into neighborhoods nobody else wanted to go to, knocked on doors everyone else ignored. I gravitated toward him without even realizing it. Something about Elliot made me feel clean. Like standing next to him erased the worst parts of my past, at least for a while. "You ever think about starting fresh?" he asked me once while we were loading boxes into the back of his truck. "All the time," I said. "Good," he replied. "Means you're not dead yet." That was the first time I laughed in a long time. I started helping him more regularly, first once a week, then 3 times, then every day. Driving, lifting, organizing, talking to people who needed someone to listen. I never asked how he made his money. He never explained. In my old life, asking questions was dangerous. When I lost my place, Elliot didn't hesitate. "I've got a guest house out back," he said. "Ain't fancy, but it's dry. You can stay as long as you need." That guest house saved me. 1 room, small bathroom, tiny kitchenette. But it was quiet. Safe. Mine. For almost 2 years, life made sense. People stopped looking at me like a screw-up. They saw me as Elliot's guy, his right hand, the guy who helped. I thought I'd finally found a real friend. Then came the day Elliot changed. It was subtle at first. Less talking, more staring. He'd drift off mid-conversation like his mind was somewhere else. One afternoon during a donation drive, I noticed his hands shaking. "You all right, man?" I asked. He exhaled slowly. "Yeah, just tired." But I knew tired. This wasn't that. That night, from the guest house, I saw his light still on, blinds wide open. He paced back and forth like a caged animal. Something felt wrong. I told myself to mind my business. I didn't. As I crossed the yard, I heard yelling, not frustration, rage. "I don't care how you do it," Elliot shouted. "Get it done. I'm not staying in this hell another day." My stomach dropped. I crept closer, heart hammering, and looked through the window. Elliot was on the phone, face twisted with anger I'd never seen, spitting words like weapons. When he turned and saw me, everything snapped. The door flew open. He charged. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he screamed, grabbing my collar and slamming me against the wall. "I was just checking on you," I said, my voice barely steady. He accused me of spying, of trying to steal from him, threw me to the ground, kicked me when I tried to stand. "Stay right there," he yelled, storming back inside. Through the window, I saw him rip open a chest and pull something out. Long, heavy. I didn't wait. I ran, grabbed my bag, cut through the woods behind the property. From the tree line, I watched him smash into the guest house, screaming my name, holding that long object like a weapon. I didn't look back again until I hit the road. At a convenience store, I begged the clerk to call the police. They arrested him that night. Later, I learned Elliot Crane wasn't his real name. Nothing about him was real. No records, no history, no explanation. Just a man who built a life on kindness and control, who broke the moment someone saw behind the curtain. I still think about him, about how safe he made me feel, about how easy it was to believe. Fake friends aren't always obvious. Sometimes they save you before they try to destroy you. And sometimes, the people who look like saints are the ones hiding the darkest secrets of all. I still remember the way the heat sat on my skin that night, thick and unmoving, like the air itself was watching us. I was 16 when it happened. Back then, we lived in a 3-story house tucked deep into the outskirts of Pine Hollow, Maine, one of those towns where woods swallow roads and neighbors are a rumor more than a reality. The nearest house was over 2 miles away, and at night, when the cicadas went quiet, you could hear your own breathing echo off the trees. My parents loved that isolation. I didn't. That summer, my parents were out of town for the week, visiting my aunt in New Hampshire. They trusted me. Too much, probably. I'd convinced them I was responsible enough, that having a few friends stay over wouldn't turn into anything stupid. There were 4 of us that night. Me, Riley Boone, who laughed too loud and always pretended he wasn't scared of anything. Kendra Walsh, sharp-tongued, sarcastic, the kind of girl who masked nerves with attitude. And Landon Pierce, quiet, observant, my so-called best friend since middle school. Fake friends don't look fake at first. They never do. It was Riley's idea to go to the beach. Pine Hollow Lake was about a 15-minute drive, and at night it felt like we owned the place. No tourists, no families, just dark water and warm sand that still held the sun's heat. "Come on," Riley said, tossing me the keys. "It's hot as hell. You want to just sit around sweating?" Kendra smirked. "I swear, if there's leeches, I'm blaming you." Landon didn't say anything. He just nodded, already grabbing his hoodie. The drive was normal. Music blasting, windows down. That stupid feeling you get when you think you're invincible just because you're young and surrounded by people you trust. We swam, we joked. We stayed longer than we should have. When we finally pulled back into the long gravel driveway, the house stood there like it always did, tall, dark, and quiet. Except it wasn't completely dark. The light on the second floor was on. I slowed the car without realizing it. "That wasn't on when we left, right?" I asked. Riley leaned forward between the seats. "Nah. Maybe your parents forgot something? They're 3 states away," I said. Kendra rolled her eyes. "Relax, probably a timer or something." I wanted to believe that. Then came the bang. It was loud, sharp, like something heavy hitting wood. The second floor light snapped off instantly. Silence swallowed everything. My keys slipped from my hand and clattered onto the gravel. "What the hell was that?" Riley whispered. My chest tightened. I don't know." I reached into my pocket, fingers shaking, pulling out my phone. The screen lit up for half a second, then went black. No, I muttered, pressing the button again. "Dead." Kendra cursed under her breath. "Are you kidding me right now?" Before I could say anything, Landon bent down, scooped up the keys, and headed for the front door. "Landon, wait," I said sharply. "Don't go in there." He didn't even turn around. "You're freaking out over nothing." "Dude, just stop," Riley added. But Landon was already unlocking the door. The house swallowed him whole. "Kendra, call the cops," I said. "Now." She fumbled for her phone. Yeah. I didn't wait. I pushed inside, the door creaking softly behind me, and immediately felt it that wrongness. The air inside was cooler, stale, like it hadn't moved in hours. I flicked the light switch. Nothing. "Landon," I called quietly. No answer. I moved toward the kitchen, every step slow, deliberate. I opened the drawer where my dad kept his knives and wrapped my fingers around the handle of the biggest one. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. I started up the stairs. Halfway up, I stopped. "Landon," I whispered again. "This isn't funny, man." That's when I heard it. My name. Soft. Close. "Ian." My blood turned to ice. The voice wasn't Landon's. Before I could react, flashing red and blue lights washed over the walls through the front window. Police. Relief crashed into me so hard my knees almost gave out. I turned and ran back down the stairs, barely keeping my balance. I was inches from the front door when it slammed shut on its own, rattling the frame. I froze. Footsteps echoed behind me. Slow. Heavy. I turned. A dark figure stood near the hallway, face swallowed by shadow. Something metallic glinted in their hand. A gun. Time stopped. Then the front door exploded open as police burst inside, shouting commands. The figure bolted, disappearing up the stairs. The knife slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor as I collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. One officer knelt beside me. Hey, look at me." But I didn't feel safe. Not even close. "Landon," I choked out. "My friend, he's still in there." They found him 30 minutes later. Unconscious. Alive. No sign of the intruder. No forced entry. No answers. That night, we slept in a hotel. 5 years passed. Life moved on. Or at least, it pretended to. When my family decided to sell the house, I thought the past was finally behind us. I was wrong, because the basement was still waiting, and so was the truth about my friends. What the basement kept quiet. 5 years is a long time. Long enough for fear to dull at the edges. Long enough for memories to feel distant, like something that happened to another version of you. By the time my parents decided to sell the house, Pine Hollow barely felt real to me anymore. I was in college, living 2 states away, coming back only to help pack things up. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Same long driveway, same trees, same quiet that felt heavier now, like it knew something we didn't. My parents split the work. They took the upper floors. My younger sister Brooke and I handled the first floor and basement. "Let's get the creepy part over with," she said, forcing a laugh as she flipped on the basement light. The stairs groaned under our weight. The basement smelled like dust and old cardboard, memories stacked in boxes no one wanted to open. Christmas decorations, old clothes, my dad's tools. That's when we saw it. A large brown leather suitcase shoved behind a rusted shelving unit. "Isn't that Dad's?" Brooke asked. "I think so," I said. "From like forever ago." I grabbed the handle and tried to lift it. It didn't budge. "What the hell?" Brooke muttered. "What's in there, Bricks?" We dragged it out into the open. The zipper was stiff, like it hadn't been touched in years. "I don't like this," she said. Neither did I, but I unzipped it anyway. The smell hit first. Not rot. Not exactly. Something dry, old. Inside were bones. Human bones. A skull stared back at us, jaw slack, empty eye sockets frozen in a silent scream. Brooke screamed. I think I did too. My parents were in the basement seconds later. My mom dropped to her knees. My dad turned pale, hands shaking as he backed away. The police came, again. They took the suitcase, took statements, asked questions that made my stomach twist. "How long have you lived here? Anyone missing? Any strange incidents?" That last question dragged the memory out of me like a splinter. The night of the break-in, the gun, the whisper, my friend unconscious upstairs. The detective listened quietly, nodding, writing everything down. "You said your friend entered the house first," he said. "What was his name?" "Landon Pierce." Something flickered across his face. "Do you know where he is now?" "I haven't talked to him in years," I said. He moved away. They found the answer 2 weeks later. The bones belonged to a man named Caleb Norwood. He'd gone missing 12 years earlier. Local guy. Drifter. Known for couch surfing and small-time theft. Last seen near Pine Hollow. The medical examiner said he'd been killed by blunt force trauma to the head. Then came the part that made my blood run cold. He'd been dead long before the night of the break-in. Years dead. Meaning the person in our house that night wasn't hiding the body. They were protecting it. The police reopened the case. And they reopened old interviews, including Landon's. They found him in Ohio. Married. Working construction. A normal life. Too normal. When detectives questioned him, he cracked faster than anyone expected. Caleb Norwood had been his uncle. A man who used to crash with Landon's family when he was a kid. A man, Landon said, was abusive, violent, drunk. One night, during a visit years ago, Caleb followed Landon home from school. They argued in the basement. Landon grabbed a tool, hit him. Once. Panic did the rest. My dad's old suitcase became a coffin. Landon never meant to leave him there forever. But time has a way of locking mistakes in place. The night we went swimming, Landon had come back to the house first. He'd seen the light on. He panicked. Riley knew. Kendra knew. They weren't stupid. They just didn't care enough to stop him. Fake friends don't protect you. They protect themselves. The whisper I heard on the stairs. Landon. The gun? Not to kill me. To scare me. To make sure I ran. The friend found unconscious? Riley. Knocked out because he threatened to talk. I was never supposed to go upstairs. I was never supposed to go into the basement years later either. Landon was arrested. Riley and Kendra were charged as accessories after the fact. The house sold. I don't talk to any of them now. Sometimes, late at night, I think about how close I came to being another secret hidden in that house. And I wonder how many people are still living beside the truth, without knowing what's buried beneath them. I remember the exact sound of the locker slamming shut behind me the first day I met him. Metal on metal, sharp, final. It echoed down the hallway of West Briar High. That ugly concrete building everyone in Millstone, Oregon pretended wasn't falling apart. The bell hadn't rung yet. Kids were still dragging their feet, yawning, clutching energy drinks like lifelines. That's when someone bumped into my shoulder hard enough to almost knock my books out of my hands. Shit, sorry, man. I turned, already annoyed, ready to snap back. And then I stopped, because I was looking at myself. Not in some vague, distant way. Not like, oh, you kind of resemble each other. No. This was unsettling. Same height, same narrow jaw, same nose that had been broken once and healed slightly crooked. Even the same tired eyes that looked like they'd seen more than a 17-year-old should. The only difference was his hair. Mine was trimmed short, school-safe. His was longer, messy, like he didn't care if it got in his eyes. He stared at me for a second, then laughed. "Whoa," he said. "That's freaky." "Yeah," I replied. "You too." He stuck out his hand. "Name's Rylan Mercer." I hesitated for half a second, then shook it. I know," he interrupted, grinning. "You're me." That was the first joke he ever made. It wouldn't be the last. Rylan slid into my life like he'd always been there. Same classes, same lunch period, same bus route. It felt natural, almost too easy. Teachers mixed us up constantly. Mercer. Both of us would stand. The class would laugh. Kids started calling us mirror boys. Someone even spread a rumor we were long-lost brothers. We leaned into it. Same hoodies, same sneakers. Sometimes we'd switch seats just to mess with people. I hadn't had a best friend like that before. I grew up quiet, kept my head down. My dad worked long hours at the mill. My mom left when I was 10. I learned early not to expect much from people. Rylan was different. He talked nonstop. About music, about girls, about how Millstone was a dead-end town, and how he was getting out no matter what. "You ever feel like everyone here is stuck on repeat?" he asked me once, sitting on the hood of my car outside Jasper's Gas and Go. I nodded. "Yeah." He smirked. "Good. Means we're not like them." I believed him. That was my first mistake. Her name was Bree Holloway. She transferred mid-semester, which in Millstone was basically headline news. People noticed her immediately. Not because she was flashy, she wasn't, but because she looked like she didn't belong. City confidence. Leather jacket even when it wasn't cold. Smelled like peppermint and smoke. She laughed loud and didn't apologize for it. She sat 2 rows ahead of us in U.S. history. The first time she turned around and looked at us, her eyes flicked back and forth between our faces. "Okay," she said. "That's weird." Rylan leaned forward. "What is?" "You guys look identical," she said. "Like, it's messing with my brain." He laughed. "Told you. I'm the better-looking one, though." She looked at me. "You gonna argue that?" I shrugged. "I don't argue with liars." She smiled at that. That smile dug in deeper than I expected. At first, nothing changed. We joked. We talked. Bree floated between us like it didn't matter. But it did. Slowly, quietly, Rylan started watching more than talking. If Bree laughed at something I said, his smile would tighten. If she sat closer to me, he'd find a reason to leave early. One afternoon, after school, he snapped. "You think you're slick, huh?" he said, shoving my shoulder as we walked across the parking lot. "What?" I said, confused. "You're always trying to one-up me." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "Dude, relax." He didn't laugh back. That was the first crack. They got worse. Little things turned into arguments. Who Bree texted first, who she waved at in the hallway, who she sat next to during lunch. One night, behind the closed grocery store on Route 14, it turned physical. Rylan shoved me hard enough that my back hit the brick wall. "You think you're better than me?" he hissed. I stared at him. "No, I think you're acting crazy." His eyes were wild. "She likes you." I didn't answer. That silence said everything. And then, one Monday morning, Rylan didn't show up. No desk shuffle. No smart comments. No mirror image staring back at me. His locker stayed closed. I texted him. Nothing. By Friday, teachers stopped asking where he was. Rumors started. Dropped out. Moved away. Arrested. Nobody knew. I told myself he'd come back. He never did. Life moved forward like he'd never existed. And that scared me more than if he had died. Rylan vanished. But the damage he left didn't. For weeks after he stopped showing up, I kept catching myself turning around in class, half expecting to see him slouched in the chair behind me, tapping his pen against the desk, smirking like he knew something I didn't. Every time attendance was called, there was a pause where his name used to be. Every time, the silence felt heavier. Bree noticed before I said anything. "You okay?" she asked one afternoon as we walked toward the parking lot. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." She stopped walking and looked straight at me. "You're a terrible liar." I sighed. "He just disappeared." She nodded slowly. "People don't just disappear." At the time, I thought she meant emotionally. I didn't realize how literal she was being. Without Rylan around, things between Bree and me changed. There was no tension anymore, no competition hanging in the air like static. We talked more. About stupid stuff. About real stuff. She told me about growing up in Reno, about her mom's third divorce, about how she hated small towns but somehow always ended up in them. I told her about my mom leaving, about my dad barely speaking after work, about how Millstone felt like a trap. One night, sitting in my car outside her place, she said quietly, "I think he hated you." I stared at the steering wheel. "No, he was my best friend." She shook her head. "He wanted your life." That sentence stayed with me. Life did what life always does, it moved on whether I was ready or not. College in-state. Bree stayed close. We broke up once, got back together twice, fought over money, over distance, over dumb things that felt huge at the time. We survived all of it. I proposed near Cedar Bluff Overlook, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the ring. She laughed, cried, said yes, then punched my arm and said, "You took long enough." We married 3 years later. Small ceremony, cheap beer, loud music, real happiness. I thought whatever darkness Rylan carried was buried in the past. I was wrong. The message came on a Tuesday night. I was driving back from a 3-day work trip, headlights cutting through rain-soaked back roads. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. "Bree. Hey. This is weird," she said when I answered. "What's up?" "I just got a text from your number." I frowned. "I haven't texted anyone. I'm driving." There was a pause. I could hear the TV murmuring in the background. "He says it's you," she said slowly. "Says you're already home." My stomach tightened. "Bree, don't answer." I already did. My grip tightened on the wheel. "What did he say?" Another pause. Longer. "He wants me to meet him. Says it's a surprise." Rain streaked across the windshield like something trying to claw its way in. "Where?" "There's this old hunting hut out past Ashwood Trail." My heart dropped into my chest. "Listen to me," I said. "Do not go there." She hesitated. "I sent you the location, just in case." That fear raw animal hit me all at once. She went anyway. Later, she told me every detail. The hut looked abandoned, wood rotting, windows cracked, the smell of damp earth and old smoke hanging in the air. Inside, candles flickered, a table set for 2, food still warm. And him, he looked older, harder. But the face was the same. He smiled and said, "Surprise." She froze. "You're not my husband," she said. He laughed softly. "Relax, I just wanted to talk." He watched her eat, watched her breathe. "You know," he said, leaning forward, "I always wondered how it would feel. Living your life." That's when she ran. Her text came through as I was minutes away. "Bree, he's chasing me." I yelled into the phone, "Get out, now, don't stop." She burst through the trees, lungs burning, boots slipping in the mud. She looked back once, just once, and saw his face twisted with rage. I pulled up as she stumbled onto the road, threw the door open, dragged her inside. Rylan slammed his hands against the car window as I sped away, screaming, The police found him hiding nearby. His real name wasn't Rylan anymore. He'd been in prison, stalking, harassment, multiple women. During questioning, he said one thing. He stole my life. I still see his face sometimes, in mirrors, in old photos, in dreams. People ask me if I believe in fake friends. I don't answer, because some friends don't disappear. They wait. I didn't meet her on a bad day. That's what still messes with my head. I met her during one of those harmless, forgettable moments, coffee sweating through a plastic cup, wedding spreadsheets open on my phone, laughing about things that didn't matter yet. Back then, nothing felt heavy. Nothing felt dangerous. If I'm being honest, I was excited. A bachelorette weekend. A break from routine. An excuse to feel young again. The bride, my best friend since college, was named Harper. She was getting married in the fall, and like most people who swear they don't want anything crazy, she absolutely wanted something crazy. Just controlled crazy. That's how the guest list formed. 7 of us total. Different personalities stitched together by Harper's optimism and a shared group chat that wouldn't shut up. That's also how Rowan entered my life. Rowan was loud in a way that made you laugh before you realized you were uncomfortable. She talked fast, drank faster, and never seemed embarrassed about anything. At first, it felt refreshing. Everyone else measured their words. Rowan bulldozed through hers. You overthink everything, she told me the first night we met, clinking her glass against mine. Life's short. If you don't jump on the bar now, you're gonna regret it when you're 40. I laughed because that's what people do when they don't know how else to respond. Back then, I thought she was brave. Over the months of planning outfits, flights, the rental house, Rowan and I grew closer. Not in some deep soul connection way, but in that convenience-driven friendship way. Drinks after work, complaining about coworkers, talking about men we were done with but kept texting anyway. She told me once, half drunk, people either love me or can't stand me, no in between. I should have heard that for what it was. By the time our trip rolled around, though, something had shifted. Rowan had started snapping over nothing. She'd show up late, disappear mid-conversation, get irritated if the attention drifted away from her for even a minute. I told myself it was stress, or nerves, or just who she'd always been. The city we picked wasn't Nashville. We went to Redwood City, Tennessee, a place people went to pretend they were wild for a weekend and responsible the rest of the year. Neon lights, live music bleeding out of every doorway. The kind of energy that convinces you bad ideas are memories in the making. The house we rented sat just outside downtown. Big porch, string lights. Enough bedrooms so no one had to share if they didn't want to. When we arrived, Harper actually teared up. "This is perfect," she kept saying. "Please don't let anything go wrong." Rowan downed a canned cocktail and said, "Relax. Worst case, we get kicked out of a bar. That's how you know it's a good night." The first night should have been our warning. Rowan climbed onto a bar during our second stop, boots slipping, drinks sloshing everywhere, and when security told her to get down, she laughed and leaned back like gravity was optional. She fell. Hard. The sound her head made against the floor cut through the music in a way I'll never forget. Everything went silent for half a second. Then chaos. She popped up laughing, blood already streaking into her hairline. "I'm fine," she said, waving us off. "Jesus. Don't look so scared." We were escorted out. After that, it spiraled. Arguments with strangers, screaming at a bartender, shoving one of Harper's cousins because she looked at her funny. Harper pulled me aside outside the last bar, eyes glassy with panic. "I just want to go back to the house," she whispered. "I don't want to remember my bachelorette like this." When I told Rowan we were heading back, she turned on me like a switch flipped. "We didn't drive all this way to sit on a couch," she snapped. "If you want to play house, you should have stayed home." "It's not about you," I said. "It's Harper's weekend." Rowan laughed, but there was nothing funny in it. "You always do this. Act like you're better than everyone." Before anyone could respond, she turned and disappeared back inside. We left. That night at the house was quiet in the best way. Barefoot in the kitchen, cheap wine, Someone found an old game console and we ended up yelling over virtual bowling like teenagers. For a few hours, Rowan didn't exist. At 2:37 a.m., my phone buzzed. A picture. Rowan. 3 girls I didn't recognize. 1 guy. All flipping off the camera. No caption. I texted her. Nothing. Called. Straight to voicemail. I checked every room in the house, every couch, every blanket. She wasn't there. At sunrise, opinions were split. Leave her, one girl said. She made her choice. I couldn't. Not really. By the time Harper woke up, tension filled the house. Bags half-packed. Coffee untouched. We were minutes away from calling the police when Rowan finally called. She sounded wrecked. Slurred. Angry. You're all trash, she yelled. You ditched me. We're at the house, I said. Just come back. We need to go to the airport. I don't need you, she snapped. I'll get home my own way. Then she hung up. She blocked us. All of us. We boarded the plane without her. For years, I wondered if that was the moment everything broke. And I didn't see her again. Until last Friday night. I didn't think about Rowan again for years. That sounds colder than it felt. But life has a way of forcing distance where guilt already lives. Harper got married. I changed jobs, moved apartments, learned how to fall asleep without replaying old conversations in my head. Rowan became a question with no answer. Until she wasn't. It was a Friday night, nothing special about it. The kind of tired that sinks into your bones after a long work week. My boyfriend, Caleb, was out of state for a conference. I'd already changed into an oversized t-shirt, poured myself a glass of red, and decided the couch was as ambitious as I was getting. Around midnight, I started getting ready for bed. I propped my phone on the bathroom cabinet and FaceTimed Caleb while brushing my teeth. He was halfway through telling me about some awkward networking dinner when he stopped talking mid-sentence. Just froze. What? I asked, mouth full of toothpaste. Is someone else there? He said. I laughed. Very funny. I'm not joking, he said. His voice had changed. Tight. Controlled. I just saw movement behind you. I turned the phone toward the bedroom doorway. Nothing. My closet door was cracked open like it always was. You're tired, I said. He shook his head. I saw someone. The door moved. I felt my stomach drop. He texted me while we were still on FaceTime. Get out. Now. Don't react. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. Something primal kicked in, the kind you don't negotiate with. I slid my feet into shoes, grabbed my keys off the counter, and moved toward the kitchen like I was just grabbing water. That's when I saw her. She was standing in my bedroom doorway. Still. Smiling. Her hair was longer. Thinner. Her eyes looked wrong, too alert. Like she hadn't slept in days. Maybe weeks. Neither of us spoke at first. Then she tilted her head and said, softly, You left me in Redwood City. My hands went up without me thinking. Rowan, I said. You shouldn't be here. She took a step forward. You all got on that plane, she said. I watched your location disappear. Caleb's voice was shouting through the phone now, but it felt far away. I told you to call me, I said. I tried to help you. Her smile cracked. You didn't try hard enough. That's when I ran. The sound of her footsteps behind me still shows up in my dreams. Fast, barefoot, determined. She kept yelling the same sentence over and over like it was carved into her brain. You left me in Redwood City. I didn't look back. I burst out of my building and ran into the street, waving my arms like a maniac. A patrol car slowed, then stopped. The officer barely had time to open his door before Rowan slammed into me from behind. We hit the pavement hard. She screamed, fought, thrashed. The officer yanked her off me, cuffing her as she laughed and cried at the same time. When they searched her, they found the knife tucked inside her sweatshirt. I sat on the curb shaking so badly my teeth chattered. She stared at me from the back of the cruiser. Not angry. Relieved. Like she'd finally finished something. The legal part is still ongoing. Restraining orders, statements, meetings I never wanted to attend. They say she's unwell, that she fixated. that what happened in Tennessee wasn't the cause, but maybe the crack. I've replayed that weekend 1,000 times, wondered if staying would have changed anything. But some people are already falling when you meet them. You just don't hear the ground yet. Be careful who you call a friend. And be kind, but not blind. Some people don't want saving. They want someone to blame. I never believed in gut feelings. People talked about them like they were some magical internal alarm system, like your body just knew when something was wrong. I always thought that was bullshit. Fear dressed up as intuition. Anxiety, pretending to be wisdom. Turns out, your gut does know. The problem is, most of us don't listen. When all of this started, my life was painfully ordinary. I was 29 years old, living alone in a rented duplex on the edge of Riverside Bluff, Missouri. Riverside Bluff was the kind of town that tried to feel bigger than it was. New coffee shops popping up next to pawn stores. Craft beer signs hanging above streets that still smelled like diesel and rain. It wasn't charming. It wasn't awful either. It was just there. I worked weekdays at a physical therapy clinic near the river. Front desk, scheduling, insurance calls, 8 to 5, same routine every day. My coworkers were nice enough, but nobody really knew each other beyond surface level. Lunch breaks were spent scrolling phones, complaining about patients, counting minutes. After work, I usually went home, reheated something frozen, and watched whatever Netflix suggested until my eyes felt heavy. I wasn't depressed. I also wasn't happy. I was stable. And at that point in my life, stability felt like success. I met Evan Mercer on a random Thursday night in early May. Not online, not through friends, not through work. It was one of those stupid coincidences that feels meaningless until it isn't. I'd stopped at a gas station off Route 14 after work. One of those places with flickering lights and floors that always felt slightly sticky. I was standing at the cooler, debating between two energy drinks I didn't need, when someone behind me said, "Don't get that one. Tastes like battery acid." I turned around. Evan was smiling at me like we already knew each other. Tall, around 6 foot, lean but solid, like he worked out without making it his personality. Dark hair, a little messy, light stubble along his jaw. Clean hoodie, jeans, sneakers that weren't flashy but looked new. He didn't look intimidating. He didn't look sketchy. He looked normal. "Which one then?" I asked. He pointed. "That one won't ruin your night." I grabbed it. "If it does, I'm blaming you." He laughed softly. "Fair." We walked to the counter together. Small talk. Where you from? What you do? Nothing deep, nothing personal. As we paid, he said, "I'm Evan. By the way, I'm Paige." Well, Paige, enjoy the not battery acid. And that should have been it, but it wasn't. A week later, I saw him again at Dockside Tap, a bar near the river that everyone pretended wasn't trashy because they installed Edison bulbs and called their fries hand cut. I was there with coworkers. He was there with nobody. "Battery acid girl," he said when he spotted me. I laughed. Energy drink snob. We ended up sitting together most of the night. Evan was easy to talk to. Not loud, not pushy. He didn't interrupt, didn't overshare. Asked questions but never pried. The kind of guy who made conversation feel effortless. "What do you do for fun? What do you hate doing? What's something people always misunderstand about you?" Normal questions. But something about the way he asked them felt attentive. At the end of the night, he didn't ask for my number. He just said, "Good seeing you again, Paige." That made me trust him. Over the next few weeks, we kept running into each other. Coffee shop near the courthouse. Farmers market on Saturday mornings. Another bar trivia night. It felt organic, like life nudging us together. Eventually, I gave him my number. We started texting. Not flirty, not heavy, just friendly. Memes, complaints about work, dumb observations about people. He remembered things, little things. How I hated cilantro. How I always parked crooked. How I drank iced coffee even when it was cold. It felt nice. It felt like being seen. A month later, we tried going on a date. Dinner at a casual place downtown. Burgers, fries, cheap wine. Halfway through, I realized I didn't feel that way. No butterflies, no pull, no spark. When he walked me to my car, I told him the truth. "I like you," I said carefully. "I just don't think this is romantic." He didn't get defensive. Didn't argue. Didn't push. He nodded. "Yeah, I get that." I do. Relief washed over me. "I'd still like to be friends," he added. "If you're cool with that." "I am," I said, and I meant it. Our friendship deepened fast. Texts every morning. Long conversations late at night. Phone calls when one of us couldn't sleep. I told Evan things I hadn't told anyone in years. How my dad left when I was 16. How my mom pretended everything was fine when it wasn't. How silence made my thoughts spiral. He listened. Never judged. Never rushed to fix things. Just listened. At the time, it felt rare. Now I know he was learning me. About 2 years later, Evan disappeared. No warning. No explanation. His number stopped working. His Instagram vanished. Mutual acquaintances said he moved out of state with a girlfriend. Someone else said it ended badly. I felt a brief sting. Then life went on. People drift. I didn't think about him again. Until one Friday night in late September. I was at Anchor Point, my usual bar. Same seat, same bartender, same playlist. I was mid-conversation when the front door opened. I felt it before I saw him. Evan stood there like nothing had changed. Same smile. Same posture. Same calm presence. "Paige," he said softly. I hugged him without thinking. And that's where everything truly began. When Evan walked back into my life that night at Anchor Point, it felt unreal, like seeing someone you'd dreamed about and forgotten, suddenly standing in front of you in flesh and blood. "I thought you moved," I said, still holding onto his arms like if I let go, he'd disappear again. "I did," he replied. "For a while." He didn't elaborate, just smiled. We sat together most of the night. He ordered water, no alcohol. I noticed it, but my brain brushed it off. Some people quit drinking. Some people just don't feel like it. "I miss this place," he said, glancing around. "You never even liked bars." I laughed. "People change," he replied. That sentence should have stuck with me more than it did. Over the next few weeks, Evan was everywhere again. Texting me good morning, calling me on his drive home, showing up when I mentioned I was tired. He remembered everything. Still did. How I hated being cold. How I preferred aisle seats. How thunderstorms made me uneasy. It felt comforting. Until it didn't. We started dating slowly. Not official at first. Dinners. Movie nights. Him staying over. No pressure. No labels. But there were rules. He didn't like Anchor Point anymore. Didn't like when I went without him. Didn't like certain coworkers. "They don't really care about you," he'd say calmly. "I see how they talk." At first, I defended them. Then, without realizing it, I stopped. The first time I really felt something was wrong was a Tuesday night. I told him I was going out with coworkers after work. His smile faltered for half a second. "Which bar?" "Anchor Point." He exhaled slowly. "I'd rather you didn't." "Why?" I asked. "Bad memories," he said lightly. "That place just messes with my head." I agreed not to go. That's how it starts. Not with control, but compromise. A month later, my friends begged me to come out. Evan said he'd pick me up later. When I ordered my drink, the bartender Rachel froze. Her face drained of color. She barely made eye contact when she slid the glass toward me. I caught her staring at me all night. When I went to the bathroom, she followed. Locked the door. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I have to say something." Her hands were shaking. "You're Evan's girlfriend, right?" My stomach dropped. She told me everything. How she dated him 2 years ago. How he talked about me constantly. How he compared her to me. Then came the photos. Folders, thousands. Me walking, driving, sitting at cafes. Pictures taken through my windows. I confronted him, she said, voice breaking. He deleted everything, threatened me, then vanished. She looked terrified. And suddenly, I was too. When Evan picked me up, I told him. Every word. He stayed quiet longer than normal. Then he smiled. I loved you, he said. I still do. I stared at him. So it's true? He pressed the gas. The car surged forward. My heart slammed against my ribs. Evan, slow down. 70, 80, 90. I screamed, grabbed his arm. His face didn't change. The curve came too fast. We didn't make it. The guardrail shattered. The world flipped. Metal screamed. Then nothing. I woke up upside down. Glass everywhere. Blood dripping into my eye. Evan was unconscious. I crawled out. Called 911. Told them everything. They arrested him. They searched his devices. They found the photos. Thousands of them. Years worth. He was charged with attempted murder. Recovery took months. Nightmares longer. Sometimes I still check my windows. Sometimes I still flinch when someone remembers too much. But I survived. Because one woman locked a bathroom door and told me the truth. I used to think fake friends were just people who talked behind your back. Now I know better. Some fake friends don't want to hurt you. They want to own you. I was never the kind of person who believed bad things only happened to other people. That belief died on a warm afternoon, sitting in the passenger seat of my mom's car, with grocery bags at my feet and nothing but ordinary thoughts in my head. The kind of ordinary that makes you careless. The day didn't feel dangerous. It felt boring. We'd just left Harlan's Fresh Market, the one wedged between a tire shop and a payday loan place off Old Creek Parkway. The parking lot was cracked. Shopping carts rattled like loose bones. And the automatic doors always took a second longer than they should. My mom tossed the receipt into the cup holder inside. Next time, she said, you're carrying the heavy stuff. I smirked. You say that every time? She pulled onto the road, tapping the steering wheel along with the radio. Some local station talking about weather warnings and road construction. Same old noise. I leaned my head against the window, watching the buildings slide by. That's when the green car showed up. It eased into the lane beside us like it had been there the whole time. Nothing flashy. No tinted windows. Just there. I noticed it, then dismissed it. People notice cars all the time. But my mom didn't. She noticed something else. Her posture changed. Her shoulders stiffened, like someone had just whispered something terrible in her ear. She checked the side mirror. Once. Twice. Her jaw tightened. I sat up. Mom? No answer. She checked the mirror again. The radio clicked off. That's when I felt it that heavy, crawling feeling in your chest when something is wrong but your brain hasn't caught up yet. Mom, I said again, quieter this time. Her voice came out low and controlled. Don't move. What? I asked. What's happening? She swallowed. Green car. Passenger side. I turned instinctively, but she snapped. Don't look. That's when she said it. They've got a gun. The words didn't land right away. Gun. Like a joke? A misunderstanding? I laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. Mom, you're tripping. I saw it, she said, clear as day. My stomach dropped so fast it made me dizzy. What do you mean you saw it? I whispered. 2 women, she said. One driving. One lifted something from her lap. Metal. Black. The traffic light ahead of us was red. Cars idled. People crossed the street like nothing in the world was wrong. My heart was slamming so hard it hurt. Why would someone? I started. I don't know, she said. I don't know why. Her foot hovered over the gas. The seconds stretched. I felt trapped. Boxed in by glass and steel. What do I do? I asked. Nothing, she said. You stay still. The light changed. Green. She floored it. The engine roared like it had been waiting. I slammed back into the seat as we shot forward. The car behind us honked. Tires squealed. My phone slid off my lap and smacked the floor. I looked back. The green car turned. It disappeared down a side street like it had never existed. My mom didn't slow down until we were miles away. She pulled over behind a closed pharmacy, hands shaking so badly she had to grip the wheel to stop them. I started crying. Not loud, just quiet, broken sobs I couldn't control. "Why didn't they follow us?" I asked. She shook her head. "I don't know. We sat there for a long time. Neither of us spoke. We didn't call the police. We didn't write anything down. We just went home. My grandfather was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with his coffee like he always was at that hour. Same chair, same mug, same calm face. My mom told him everything. He didn't interrupt, didn't react. When she finished, he nodded once and said, 'You trusted your instincts. That's what matters.' I wanted him to be angry. I wanted him to say something dramatic, but he didn't. And somehow, that scared me more. After that day, something changed in me. I noticed things. Too much. Green cars made my chest tighten. Strangers made my palms sweat. But worse than that, people, friends, the way they watched you when they thought you weren't looking. A year later, my mom told me a story she said she'd heard through a friend of a friend. I didn't know then that it would change how I looked at trust forever. There was this woman, she said, name doesn't matter, late 40s, lived alone. We were folding laundry, the TV humming quietly in the background. She always wanted kids, my mom continued. Never happened. Life got in the way. I nodded, listening. So she flies overseas. Different country, different rules. She adopts a little girl. What country? I asked. My mom shook her head. Doesn't matter. The girl was quiet, polite, grateful, or so everyone thought. Years passed. College came, then drugs, then violence. One night, my mom said softly, they fought, and the girl killed her. I stopped folding. What happened to the girl? My mom shrugged. Nobody knows. Family cut ties. Court couldn't decide what she was. What do you mean? They thought maybe she wasn't evil, my mom said. Maybe she was just broken. That word stuck with me. Broken. I didn't realize it then, but that story was preparing me. For Ridge Calder. Ridge showed up in my life like he belonged there. He sat next to me in class one day without asking, flashing a smile like we were old friends. You look like you hate this place as much as I do, he said. I laughed. That obvious? Yeah, he said. You've got that why am I here face. That was how it started. Fast. Easy. Too easy. Ridge knew how to mirror people. If you joked, he joked. If you complained, he agreed. If you trusted him, he leaned in closer. And I trusted him. At first. But little things started adding up. He knew where I worked, when I got off, who I lived with, things I didn't remember telling him. One night, I asked him straight up, how do you know all this? He laughed. Man, you talk more than you think. But something in his eyes shifted, just for a second. Then came the green car, parked across the street from his place. Same dull color, same ugly shade. Who's that? I asked. Ridge didn't even look. Relax, he said. You paranoid. But his fingers tightened around his drink. And I knew the feeling. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had already crossed a line I didn't see happen. Ridge kept acting normal. Too normal. He still texted like nothing was wrong. Yo, you alive? You disappearing on me or what? I stopped replying right away. Not on purpose at first. I just didn't feel like it. Something about him started putting weight on my chest. Like when you walk into a room and can feel tension without knowing why. One afternoon, he showed up at my job. I hadn't told him where I worked. I was behind the counter at a small hardware store off Crestline Avenue, ringing up nails and paint rollers, when I heard his voice. There you are. I looked up. Ridge leaned against the counter, smiling like this was planned. I felt my stomach tighten. You work here now? He asked. I forced a laugh. Yeah, been here a bit. How long's a bit? Couple months. He nodded slowly. Huh. Never mentioned it. I shrugged. Didn't think it mattered. His smile flickered. Just for a second. Everything matters, he said. That's how you know people. I didn't like the way he said that. He bought nothing. Just stood there talking until my manager cleared his throat behind him. Catch you later, Ridge said, tapping the counter twice before leaving. Tap, tap. The sound stayed with me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I thought about my mom at that red light, about the gun, about how close something terrible had come without leaving a mark. I started replaying conversations with Ridge, the questions he asked, the things he remembered, the way he always positioned himself just a little too close. I remembered something else too. The first time I met him, he asked me where I lived. Not the area, not the city, the street. I brushed it off back then. I didn't brush it off anymore. A week later, I ran into Marlo Jensen. She was someone I knew from class but never talked to much. Quiet, observant, the kind of person who listened more than she spoke. We ended up sitting near each other in the library. She glanced at my phone, lighting up with Ridge's name again and again. "You good?" she asked. I hesitated, then said, "Do you know Ridge?" Her expression changed. "Yeah," she said slowly. "Why? Something feel off to you about him?" I asked. She stared at the table for a moment, then leaned in. "He lies," she said. "A lot." My heart skipped. "What kind of lies?" "Little ones," she said. "Big ones. Depends on the day." She told me Ridge had different stories for different people, different hometowns, different families, different pasts. "He asked me for money once," she added. "Said it was an emergency." I said no. He stopped talking to me after that. Something clicked. Fake friends don't leave when you need them. They leave when they can't use you. That night, I decided to confront him. Not aggressively, just honestly. We met at a diner off Route 9, the kind that smelled like grease and burnt coffee no matter what time it was. Ridge slid into the booth across from me. "You've been distant," he said. "What's up?" I took a breath. "I need to ask you something." "Shoot. Why do you know so much about me?" He laughed. Too quick. "Man, that again?" "I'm serious." His eyes hardened. "You accusing me of something?" "I'm asking." He leaned back, crossing his arms. "You paranoid?" That word again. Paranoid. "Do you own a green car?" I asked quietly. The diner noise seemed to drop out. Ridge didn't answer right away. Then he smiled. "Lot of green cars out there," he said. I stood up. "I think we're done," I said. He didn't try to stop me. But as I walked away, he said something that froze me mid-step. "You ever think about what almost happened to you and your mom?" I turned. "What did you just say?" Ridge's smile was gone. "Nothing," he said. "Forget it." I didn't forget it. I couldn't. 2 weeks later, Ridge disappeared. No texts, no calls, no sightings. I thought maybe that was it. I was wrong. The article popped up while I was scrolling one night. Different state, different name, same face. Charged with armed assault. Multiple aliases. My hands shook as I read it. The picture stared back at me like a dare. I closed the app and sat there in silence, thinking about green cars, thinking about red lights, thinking about how close danger can get without ever touching you. My mom noticed something was wrong. "You okay?" she asked one night. I nodded. "Yeah." She didn't push. She never did. But as I lay in bed later, staring at the ceiling, I understood something clearly for the first time. Some people don't come into your life to be friends. They come to learn you, study you, wait. And when they leave, it's not because they're done. It's because they found something else, or someone else. After Ridge disappeared, life didn't magically go back to normal. That's the lie people tell, that danger leaves clean edges behind. It doesn't. It leaves echoes. I started noticing how quiet my days became. Fewer texts, smaller circles, less noise. At first, it felt lonely. Then it felt safe. And that scared me too, because safety shouldn't feel unfamiliar. A few months passed. I stopped checking social media as much. Stopped trusting smiles right away. Stopped assuming everyone meant well just because they acted friendly. My mom noticed the change. "You're different," she said one night while we were washing dishes. "Good different or bad different?" I asked. She thought for a moment. "Aware different?" That word again. Aware. I dried my hands and leaned against the counter. Do you ever think about that day? With the car? She nodded. More than I want to admit. Do you think they knew us? I asked. She shook her head. I think they didn't need to. That answer stuck with me. Some people don't need a reason. A year later, I ran into Marlo again. We were both older, more tired, less open. We talked about Ridge for the first time since everything happened. You ever hear from him? I asked. No, she said. But I heard about him. She pulled up an article on her phone. Different crime, different city, same pattern. He always needed someone, she said quietly. Until he didn't. I thought about that woman my mom told me about. The one who adopted a child without knowing her past. About how love wasn't enough to overwrite what already existed. Some people are shaped by things you'll never see. That doesn't make them monsters, but it doesn't make them safe either. A few weeks later, something small happened that broke me in a way I didn't expect. I was driving alone. Stopped at a red light. A green car pulled up beside me. Same shade. Same dull paint. My hands started shaking. My heart slammed so hard I thought I'd pass out. I glanced over. An older couple sat inside, arguing about directions. Nothing dangerous. Nothing wrong. The light turned green. They drove off. I sat there for a moment, breathing through the panic. And then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I finally understood. Trauma doesn't care about logic. It cares about memory. That night, I told my mom everything about Ridge. She listened quietly, just like my grandfather had years before. When I finished, she said something I'll never forget. Sometimes the universe gives you a warning shot, she said. Not to scare you, to teach you. What was the lesson? I asked. She met my eyes. That not everyone who stands beside you is on your side. I don't think about Ridge much anymore, but I think about fake friends all the time. The ones who ask too many questions. The ones who mirror you too well. The ones who disappear the moment you stop being useful. I think about how close danger can sit without ever touching you. How sometimes survival isn't about fighting. It's about noticing, listening, leaving early. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Real friends don't make you feel watched. Real friends don't study your routines. Real friends don't smile when you're uncomfortable. And real danger doesn't always come running at you with a weapon. Sometimes it pulls up beside you at a red light, smiles, and waits. I used to believe that if you worked hard enough, if you stayed loyal long enough, life would eventually return the favor. That belief was built inside a bar. Not a fancy one. Not the kind with neon cocktails and Instagram walls. Just a narrow, dimly lit dive called Blackwater Bend, wedged between a tire shop and an abandoned florist on Hollis Avenue, right near the river bend that smelled like rust and wet concrete in the summer. That bar raised me. My father, Graham Holloway, bought the building when I was still a toddler. Everyone said he was crazy for it. The place had water damage, bad wiring, and a reputation for fights. But Dad had this way of seeing potential where other people only saw problems. He used to tell me, people don't come to bars for drinks, they come to forget. Growing up, my childhood didn't have weekends or holidays. It had shifts. I learned to read sitting in a booth with cracked vinyl seats. I learned math counting tips. I learned body language by watching men walk in angry and leave quieter or louder. By the time I was 14, I could tell if a fight was about to happen just by the way someone set their glass down. And through every stage of my life, there was always one constant presence sitting at the far end of the bar. His name was Lorne Calder. Most people thought he was just another regular. But to me, Lorne felt permanent. Lorne didn't announce himself when he entered a room. The door would open, the bell would ring once, and suddenly he'd just be there. Already halfway to his stool like he'd been mid-step before reality caught up. He was a big man. Broad shoulders, thick neck, heavy hands that looked like they'd crushed more than beer cans in their lifetime. His hair was iron gray and always tied back with a strip of leather, and his beard hid half his face, but not his eyes. His eyes were always tired. Not drunk tired, not old tired, tired like someone who had seen too much and never learned how to put it down. He drank rye whiskey. Neat. One every hour. Never rushed. Never skipped. And he only talked to my father. Sometimes I'd be behind the bar, pretending not to listen, while they spoke in half sentences and pauses. You hear from him? No, and I don't want to. Some things stay buried. Whenever I asked my dad about Lorne, he'd shut it down fast. That's old work, he'd say. You don't need to know. As a kid, I thought that meant construction, or the military, or some union thing. As an adult, I realized it meant something darker. The day my father died started like any other. He complained about the fryer not holding temperature, told me I was ordering too much beer from the distributor, asked if I remembered to pay the electric bill. Then he grabbed his chest. That was it. No dramatic speech. No last words. Just confusion in his eyes. And then nothing. At the hospital, the doctor used words like sudden and peaceful. None of those words mattered. All I saw was my father, this man who seemed immovable, reduced to a still body under fluorescent lights. 3 days later, Blackwater Bend was mine. I didn't feel proud. I felt trapped. But I opened the bar anyway. Because closing it felt like letting my father die twice. That first night back, the place was packed. People I hadn't seen in years showed up. Old regulars hugged me like we were family. Strangers bought shots for Graham. I smiled. I poured. I nodded. Then the door opened. Lorne walked in. The second he saw me alone behind the bar, something in his face cracked. He didn't speak. He didn't even sit down at first. He just stood there, gripping the back of the stool like it might slide away. Then he sat, and he started crying. Not quiet tears, not dignified grief. Full-on, chest-shaking sobs. The bar went silent. I poured him a rye and slid it across the counter. This one's on the house, I said. For my old man. Lorne wrapped both hands around the glass like it was keeping him upright. I should have gone first, he whispered. That sentence stayed with me. It felt wrong. As the night dragged on, the crowd thinned. By closing time, it was just me and Lorne. Empty bottles lined the bar. Chairs were flipped. The lights were dimmed. All right, I said gently. You're done for the night. Let's get you home. He didn't move. I'm not who you think I am, he said. I frowned. When you get old, he muttered, death stops being scary. Memories don't. I sat beside him. You sound like you need sleep. His hand slammed down on the bar. I did things, he said. Things I can't undo. And I liked it. I stood up. He stood faster. His hand grabbed my collar and shoved me backward. I see their faces, he screamed. Every damn night. My back hit the wall. Then just as fast he let go. Sat back down. Started sobbing again. Your father knew, he said. That's why he stayed. Then Lorne started yelling. Not English. Something harsh. Angry. Foreign. He flipped stools. Smashed glasses. Screamed like a man being torn apart from the inside. I stayed frozen. Finally, he looked at me. I won't let them follow me anymore. And he ran. The police said it like they were talking about a lost wallet. No sign of him. Probably took off. That was the official answer. They checked Lorne Calder's house twice. Once that night, once the next morning. Same result both times. No forced entry. No struggle. No note. No packed bags. Just an empty place that felt more like a motel room than a home. No photos on the walls. No mail on the counter. No family pictures. Just a single chair by the window and a half-empty bottle of rye on the table. The officer looked at me and shrugged. Some people don't leave much behind. That sentence sat wrong with me, because Lorne had been in my life for over 2 decades. And suddenly, it was like he'd never existed. Blackwater Bend didn't feel the same after that night. I kept expecting to hear the bell on the door ring and see Lorne already halfway to his stool, nodding at me without smiling. But every time the door opened, it was someone else. Someone loud. Someone normal. The regulars noticed. Where's that big quiet guy? Hey, ain't Lorne coming in anymore? He's sick or something? I told them the truth. I don't know. And that wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the whole truth either. because something about that night kept replaying in my head. Not the yelling, not the broken glass. The words, "Your father knew." A week after Lorne disappeared, I started sleeping in my dad's old office above the bar. I told myself it was because the apartment felt too quiet. That wasn't it. I needed to be closer to answers. The office hadn't been touched since the day my father died. His jacket still hung on the hook. His old radio sat on the desk, permanently tuned to a station that barely came in. One night, after closing, I sat at his desk and opened the bottom drawer. That's where I found the box. It was old. Cardboard soft at the edges, taped shut with yellowing tape. Inside were newspaper clippings, not from Ridgway Falls. Different towns, different states, different years. Headlines jumped out at me. Local man found dead, no suspects. River disappearance still unsolved. Bar fight ends in fatality, witnesses silent. On the back of one photo, written in my father's handwriting, were two letters, L.C. My stomach dropped. I flipped through the box faster. Every clipping had those same initials. Some had dates circled. Some had names crossed out. Some had nothing at all, just the picture and those letters. At the bottom of the box was an envelope. Inside it was a single note. "He saved my life. I keep him close so he doesn't become what he used to be." I sat there for a long time, listening to the bar hum beneath me, realizing something horrible. Lorne wasn't just my dad's friend. He was his responsibility. After that, memories started to shift. Things I'd ignored before started lining up. How Lorne never talked about family. How he never took photos. How he paid in cash. How he never let anyone walk him home except me. How he always sat where he could see the door. How he never stayed past closing. Except that night, I started asking questions around town. Carefully, I asked Hank, the old dock worker who'd been drinking at Blackwater Bend since before I was born. "Hey, you remember Lorne before my dad owned the bar?" Hank squinted. "Name don't ring a bell. What about the big guy? Gray hair. Always wore flannel." Hank shook his head. "Son, I've been coming here 30 years. I'd remember a guy like that. That scared me more than anything else, because I remembered him. So why didn't anyone else? 2 weeks after Lorne vanished, I found someone who did. Her name was Marlo Fitch. She used to bartend at a place downriver called the Split Anchor, before it shut down after a stabbing. She was older now, hair gone gray at the temples, eyes sharp like she didn't miss much. She stared at me when I mentioned Lorne. "You shouldn't be asking about him," she said. My heart skipped. "You know him?" She took a slow drink and leaned closer. "I knew him before he was Lorne." My mouth went dry. "What was his name?" She hesitated. "Doesn't matter. He changed it every few years." "What did he do?" I asked. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He survived," she said. "That's what he did." She told me stories. About a man who showed up in bars right before things went bad. About fights that ended with ambulances. About men who were never seen again. "And your father," she added quietly, "was the only one who ever made him stop." That hit harder than I expected, because suddenly, my dad wasn't just a bar owner. He was a man standing between a monster and the world. The last thing Marlo said before she left still echoes in my head. "He wasn't your friend," she said. "He was trying to be." That night, I stayed late again. I poured a rye, set it at the end of the bar. "Why didn't you tell me?" I muttered to an empty room. For a moment, I swear I heard a chair scrape. I froze. Nothing happened. But I knew then. Lorne wasn't gone. He was running. From himself. There's a special kind of silence that settles into a bar after midnight. Not the quiet you get at home. Not the peaceful kind. It's a hollow silence. Like the building itself is holding its breath. After Marlo talked to me, I couldn't bring myself to lock up and leave anymore. I stayed late. Every night. Sitting at the bar, staring at the same empty stool where Lorne had sat for more than half my life. I kept thinking about what she'd said. "He wasn't your friend. He was trying to be." That sentence bothered me more than everything else combined. Because what does that even mean? Either someone's your friend, or they're not, right? I started noticing things I had ignored for years. How Lorne never laughed too hard. How he never drank more than he could control. How he never let himself relax completely. Like he was always on duty. Like the bar wasn't a place to unwind, it was a place to contain himself. And then it hit me. Maybe Lorne didn't come to Blackwater Bend because he liked the drinks. Maybe he came because my father was there. I dug deeper into my dad's things, not out of curiosity anymore, out of necessity. In the back of his filing cabinet, behind old tax records and vendor invoices, I found another envelope. This one was thicker, heavier. Inside were handwritten pages. My father's handwriting. Not neat, not organized, like he'd written it fast, afraid he might change his mind. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And if Lorne is gone too, then I failed. I felt my throat tighten. He came into my life angry and broken. The kind of man who doesn't feel guilt until it's too late. I don't know exactly what he did before Ridgway Falls. I never asked. I didn't need to. Some people don't need forgiveness. They need boundaries. I sat down hard in the chair. I kept him close. Gave him routine. Gave him rules. Gave him a place where violence had no purpose. That was the deal. The paper shook in my hands. If he ever loses me, he might lose control. And if that happens, I pray to God he runs instead of hurting someone. I understood now. Blackwater Bend wasn't just a bar. It was a leash. 3 nights later, the call came. 217 M. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello? There was heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice I hadn't heard in months. You shouldn't have looked, Lorne said. My chest tightened. Where are you? Doesn't matter. You're scaring people, I said. You scared me. A long pause. I scared myself first. I swallowed. You don't have to do this alone. He laughed. A dry, tired sound. That's the problem, he said. I always was alone. The line went dead. The next morning, police cars lined the river access road just outside town. A fisherman had found something. A jacket. Green. Worn. Familiar. Lorne's. No body. No blood. Just the jacket folded neatly on a rock by the water. Inside the pocket was a note. My name on the front. The officer hesitated before handing it to me. I knew why. Because some goodbyes aren't meant to be read out loud. You were kind to me. That's more than I deserved. Your father understood what I was. You only saw what I tried to be. That's the difference between us. If I stay, people get hurt. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But eventually, this is me doing the one good thing I still can. My hands were shaking. Friendship isn't about being known. It's about being stopped. At the bottom, one last line. Tell the bar I'm sorry. They ruled it and assumed drowning. No witnesses. No remains. Just another unsolved story added to the town's long list of quiet tragedies. Life moved on. It always does. Blackwater Bend is still open. Same stools, same lights, same smell of old wood and spilled liquor. Some nights, new regulars ask about the empty seat at the end of the bar. I tell them it's taken. They usually laugh. They don't understand. I used to think fake friends were the ones who smiled to your face and talked behind your back. Now I know better. Sometimes fake friends are the ones who sit beside you for years, while hiding what they really are. Not because they want to hurt you, but because they're afraid of what happens if you see the truth. And some nights, when the bar is quiet, and the river wind rattles the windows, I pour a rye and set it at the end of the counter. Not because I expect him to come back, but because for a long time, he tried.